So we've got Sony's latest flagship INZONE gaming headset here, and it has a pretty big headline feature. And that is that they have the exact same drivers as Sony's flagship headphones, the very popular Sony WH-1000 XM6. Now, I've seen a lot of chatter online that, well, that must mean that they sound just as good, right? And I mean, that would be great because the INZONE H9 II here, well, they cost $100 less than the Sony WH-XM6. Now, is that too good to be true? Spoiler alert, yes it is. And I don't just say that, having only listened to both of these, but look, we also have the testing data to prove it, so stay with me here. First off though, I just want to go over the design and the comfort of the headset itself. So these are actually really well built and comfortable, and it's almost like Sony took what they learned from the WH-1000 XM6 headphones and made some very smart improvements here for gaming use cases. While you can see the ear cups have the same width and size, they've added much more generous padding to the H9 II here to give it more depth and more space for your ears. So, when I wear these headphones, they're not getting smushed up against the inside walls like they do when I wear the XM6 headphones. And no more dealing with that annoying ANC mic poking in your ears either. You have ample depth for comfort here. What really impressed me about this gaming headset though is just how lightweight they feel. They're 57 grams lighter than the original INZONE H9, and Sony even redesigned the headband here completely for better weight distribution. So you've got this thin steel frame wrapped in a nice braided fabric with an adjustable padded cushion underneath that you just, pinch and hold these little suspension tension buttons here, and that'll move the nice leatherette cushion underneath the headband. Now the adjustment uses the spring hinges plus a little slider lock mechanism on either side of the headband there. Though I'll be honest, it can be a little bit tricky to make small adjustments while you're wearing the headset because look, of the spring tension, if you release it, it'll just instantly slide all the way out. So I do recommend, even though it can be a little frustrating, getting the right length before you put it on your head. One thing I really like too is that the ear cups can fully rotate to lie flat in both directions, right? That's not something we see too often, either with gaming headsets or headphones. Now, they don't fold up for compactness like the Sony XM6 do, and they don't come with a nice hard shell case either, but they do come with kind of this soft little travel pouch that, you can tuck the headphones in there, and it's got a little side pouch there, to store your cables and what have you. You can tuck them in there. Everything's pretty portable and easy. It's also kind of a slightly water-resistant coating on the outside, so if this does get caught in some light rain, you have that water-resistant exterior, which is a little bit of nice protection. Not as much as a hard shell, but hey, at least it's something. Look how far these can stretch too. I mean, that's like for stress testing these, I can bend and push these a considerable amount of length, They're very lightweight, very bendable, very easy to position, pretty much any angle the shape of your head is going to require. Controls are pretty straightforward too. On the right side, you've got game and chat balance, you've got a power button, and you've got a separate Bluetooth pairing button. On the left side, you got your ANC on and off, you got a volume dial, you got the USB-C charging, and you even got a headphone jack, so that's nice to see. Now the mic too here is also detachable, and on the left ear cup, you got this nice big textured button right at the top. It'll have a ring light, an LED red ring light that'll light up to indicate when the mic is muted. For connectivity, you get three options. Your main one's going to be this little 2.4 gigahertz dongle, which can plug into PC, PlayStation, or even a docked Nintendo Switch. You got a little switch itself on the dongle to switch between PC and other, other being all your other consoles, except for Xbox. Sorry, Xbox. This is a Sony product though, There's also Bluetooth 5.3 with LE audio support, which means you will get much better battery life, and you can actually connect via Bluetooth and the dongle simultaneously. So it's really nice to have that dual audio input, so you can listen to your game audio and also have, a podcast or maybe a live Discord chat, on the other line via Bluetooth. The headphone jack too, I want to say that is a welcome back addition because that was not on the original H9, and we're a big fan of the headphone jacks here and wired connectivity, so good job, Sony. As for software, Sony gives you two apps to work with. You can either use this INZONE Hub for PC, which is pretty basic and bare bones. It's mainly there for your EQ presets, It's got the spatial sound feature where, you can like upload pictures of your ear for custom HRTF profiles, but the whole thing's a little bit cumbersome, and I don't find the personalized sound created from going through that process is necessarily worth it. You also get the Sony Sound Connect mobile app, which has all the same functions, but there is a key difference between the INZONE Hub and the Sound Connect, and that's that with Sound Connect on mobile, you can actually save EQ presets to the headset itself, right, using the mobile app. Now this is important because every time you go to connect to PC, the INZONE Hub is going to overwrite your settings. And yeah, that's as annoying as it sounds. So if you do get an EQ that you like, and you probably want to, as we'll get to later in sound quality, just be aware that if you connect to INZONE Hub on PC, it's going to overwrite your custom EQ. So you're going to have to go back into the app, either load up your EQ if it's already saved, or toggle a new one. It's overly cumbersome, and I wish, the two app departments would work together to make that a little bit more seamless. Now for battery life, Sony claims 30 hours, but in our testing, we actually got 48 hours and 32 minutes with ANC off, measured at about 75 decibels of volume output. And that's solid enough for, several gaming sessions. I was able to go a full week of light gaming without ever recharging these. Quick charging will also give you 3 hours of playback from just 5 minutes of charging, so that's really handy if you do need quick top-ups in a pinch. Even though the battery life is pretty good, there are cheaper headsets out there. The Razer Blackshark V3 Pro, that got up to 70 hours of playback, and I mean there's even like the HyperX Cloud Alpha, which has just a crazy like 300 hours, so it's not like the absolute best battery life that we've seen, but it is decent, but it could be better for the price point given that these are more expensive. Now, as I said, the microphone is detachable, and this is a big improvement over the original H9, which simply used a plastic flip-to-mute design. This, you get a nice detachable microphone that is a unidirectional setup, which focuses on your voice much better. Is very bendable, you can position it pretty much any way you want, and really this kind of design and the filter just helps cut through the background noise that much better. I'm going to set up a mic sample here because I know you guys complained last time that we didn't have it in the video, even though they're all on our website to listen to, but that's okay, I'll do it for you here. Let's boot her up. So the mic here I think is a big improvement from the original Sony H9. Sony has switched from that plastic flip-to-mute design to now this detachable unidirectional setup. Yeah, personally, I find it focuses on my voice much better and is able to cut down background noise a lot better as well. They've also expanded the frequency range of the microphone from 50 to 7 kilohertz to 50 hertz to 14 kilohertz. Because of that, voices can sound more natural and detailed. It's not going to replace a dedicated podcasting mic, but this is way better than, say, wireless earbuds if you need something for work calls or Zoom meetings, just a lightweight, breathable headset to wear while working remotely from home. This could easily, be a good solution for that. Anyway, let me know what you guys think of the mic here, and we have plenty of other mic samples on our review on our website, different simulated environments for you to see how it performs in a variety of conditions for yourself. Just one thing to note on the microphone though, I did find the default side tone level to be set extremely low. I had to bump it up to around 70 to 80% to actually hear myself through the mic while I'm talking. But anything higher than that, it started to sound robotic, especially with, plosives and S sounds. So I don't know why the side tone is so low on default, but you really got to set it right around 70, 80 there if side tone is something that you need in your gaming. So the ANC here is actually pretty good. It handles, say, rumble and droning sounds really well. I couldn't hear any of my colleagues talking, even if they were standing just a few feet away from me. Although I could hear a low murmur, that they were talking, I just couldn't hear what they said. I also couldn't hear the AC unit that's directly overhead our gaming PC at all. That was completely silenced from the ANC here. For other high-end noise, the ANC really doesn't make much difference over the passive isolation alone. I could still hear my colleagues clacking on their mechanical keyboards. But overall, this is pretty good ANC, not just for a gaming headset, but for headphones in general. I mean, you're looking at an average noise attenuation of 80% here, which is actually really good and not that far off from the XM6's average attenuation of 86%. So, a 6% difference is really not going to be that noticeable to most people, so I'd say you're getting comparable ANC here as, leading flagship headphones. The ambient mode, as they call it though, isn't quite as sophisticated as the XM6's transparency mode. It really just lets in more noise rather than like intelligently filtering for voices specifically. So, if you just want to hear, the ambient environment around you, it's okay. But for actual conversations, you're better off just removing the headset and, chatting to someone and then putting it back on and getting back into the game. Now, sound quality. As I already said, this headset uses the same drivers found in the Sony WH-1000 XM6. And let's take a look at those drivers here. So we're going to rip off the ear cup of the XM6. We're going to rip off the ear cup of the INZONE H9 II. Look at that to the camera. You can see they are the same 30mm drivers. Although, the XM6 one is more angled and the ANC mic there kind of pokes out through the fabric. This one is nice and flat and you get more ample cushioning to not have it poking through. God, the ear pads just suck so much on the XM6. Look at that. That looks like a worn in couch, where this is like nice plushy, breathable fabric. This is like, I don't know why the build quality, the padding on these ear pads is so bad. It's just, sorry, it's just a little aside. Anyways, they have the same drivers, so a lot of people make the assumption that they must sound just as good, right? Wrong. Wrong. Unfortunately, these sound nothing like the XM6, and frankly, any reviewer out there that's telling you they do is either lying or they just can't hear correctly and need to clean their ears, because we have the data to show that they don't. Okay? For starters, our simulated panel of untrained listeners, as represented by MDAX, delivered just okay results across the board. The INZONE H9 II got an overall score of 3.1 out of 5, which, while not terrible, it isn't near as good compared to the XM6's 4.8 overall. The biggest factor bringing down the overall score of the H9 II is the low results for timbre. And, that timbre has to do with how faithfully a headset reproduces the frequency spectrum. And honestly, it isn't entirely unsurprising that the H9 II don't do a great job of that, given that these are tuned for gaming. And not only just gaming, but FPS gaming specifically, whereas the XM6s are tuned for music listening. So they have completely different tuning at default, even though they share the same drivers. As Sony said to us, the INZONE H9 II is, and I quote, uniquely tuned in collaboration with Fnatic players for the purpose of winning FPS games. So the target sound quality is different from general headphone products. And taking a look at that target sound in our frequency response measurements, you can see some pretty significant deviations from our house curve. The minor ones are obviously the sub bass is underemphasized. There's also a bass boost at 100 Hz, so you will hear low end effects even if you don't really feel them in game. But the biggest issue here is the complete lack of the ear gain at that 3 kHz region, and plus the significant dip just before 4 kHz there. Now for FPS games, this tuning is okay. Sound effects like footsteps in Valorant, they're not as clear as those in other competitive headsets I've tried, but they do maintain enough clarity and localizability for competitive gameplay. The lack of treble strength there also does help reduce listening fatigue during long gaming sessions, especially ones that have constant gunfire or other sharp sound effects that could get really irritating after a while. It does help to mitigate that a bit. The bass response also provides good punch for explosions and weapon fire without becoming excessively boomy or muddying any crucial spatial cues that you need to be listening for. So that's all to say, it's good for FPS games, which to its credit is what it sets out to do, but unfortunately the default sound quality just sucks for everything else. Now, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant here because I've been seeing a trend in gaming headset companies lately where they essentially seem to be just handing over the default tuning of their headset to a select few eSport Pro players. We saw that with the Razer Blackshark V3 Pro, and surprise, surprise, the eSports EQ preset was the one that scored the lowest MDAX results out of all the EQ presets. Now, yes, I imagine this is still a collaborative process, right? Like, there's got to be some back and forth between Sony's engineers and these eSports players, features, but still, the problem with having your default tuning only cater to FPS games, and sometimes even specific FPS game titles, right, is that it will exclude so many other use cases. I mean, I gotta think these companies are like partnering with these esports teams, you know, for clout with the gaming community or whatever, but it's just like for anything outside of FPS games, these are going to sound bad, and I don't like it. Like, what if I want to play a single player game, or what if I want to play some cozy, relaxing games, or what if I just want to use the headset to listen to music? Well, then I have to go and use the custom equalizer to try and fix the tuning, and then the equalizer's not even going to save to the headset because of the issues I used before, and it's just too much work, you know? And like, what doesn't make sense either is that there are already 3 FPS specific EQ presets to choose from. Like, when you boot up the INZONE hub, there's 3 FPS specific EQ presets there. So why couldn't we have just had those for FPS games and then leave the default tuning well enough alone, right? Just carry over the same tuning from the XM6. Like, that would have been so much better in my opinion. There's also no EQ presets for any other game types, by the way, like nothing for RTS, nothing for RPG games. Like, so I wish Sony had spent a little more time developing maybe other game specific options. We basically have 4 different EQ tuning presets for FPS games. It's like, we went a little FPS crazy here. I mean, maybe that's what you're looking for, maybe that's all you play and you don't play any other type of games. Okay, go for it, you know, you'll probably love the tuning, but personally I like something that can be a little more versatile and multi-use case. Thankfully though, you know, credit where credit's due, the 10-band custom equalizer is pretty robust enough to fix most of the under and over emphasis that I mentioned, especially restoring that ear gain bump, which is really essential. And if you want my custom EQ settings, I'll throw them up on screen here for you to see. But again, the problem with the custom EQ is that you can only save your EQ presets to the headset when you're using the mobile app. So for $350, the INZONE H9, I think, is asking a lot for what it delivers. Now, yes, the comfort is excellent, the ANC is effective, and it does what it promises for FPS gaming. But the sound quality for anything outside of first-person shooters is going to need some serious EQ tweaking. The battery life is just decent also, and you can get most of these features in gaming headsets that cost $100 to $200 less. Really, it's unfortunate because I think Sony had an easy win here, right? Like, just take the XM6, put a detachable boom mic onto it, you know, and call it a day, right? Like, instead, they handed over the default tuning to these pro esports players and created something that's great for a very specific use case, but it's mediocre at best for everything else. So if you're serious about first-person shooter games, and you value comfort and premium features above all else, and you're willing to pay for it, okay then, the H9 INZONE II delivers. But for most people, I'd say there are better options that give you more versatility for your money. And if you're looking for alternatives that might give you better value, you can check out our reviews of the Razer Blackshark V3 Pro and the Alienware Pro right here and here.